Hi, it's the Carter Man up here at Riverbend Park, getting ready to replenish my fire pit. See if I can get it captured here. There you go. There you go. There's the wood there. There's the campfire. Could not light it up last night because it rained like cats and dogs. Matter of fact, that wood I just showed you is still wet. It'll dry out in the fire pit there, and we'll have a good campfire tonight. But that's really not the reason that I'm sending you this message. The reason is I want to encourage you, if you haven't watched Coffee with the Carter Man, this past Thursday's edition, #1 conservative podcast in America, I want to urge you to go back and watch it. And I'll tell you why, because the two things that happened yesterday. First of all, the MOU, the phony, ridiculous Memorandum of Understanding we had with Iran, ran out yesterday. And Trump, as you know, had said, if they don't abide by it and adhere to it, when this is all over, I'm going to destroy everything in sight. It's going to be, rain down hell, fire and brimstone, blah, blah, blah. Look, well, first, the second thing that happened, as it expired, Iran announced, we won the war politically and militarily. And they made it clear they had won it without abiding by one word of the MOU. Now, why do I say you need to go back and watch the podcast, last week's podcast, in view of yesterday's events? I'll tell you why. Because in yesterday's podcast, there's old Blue, my 40-year-old golf cart in the back. In yesterday's podcast, or Thursday's podcast, I talked about prophecy. Now, somebody used to say, I don't believe in the Bible. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care whether you believe in the Bible or not. That's between you and God. And at the Great White Throne Judgment Day, he might have something to say about that, but that's just my opinion, okay? You stick to your opinion, okay, for what it's worth. But in the book of, I think it's Ezekiel, maybe Ezekiel 5, I go over this in the podcast, or about probably 8 or 9 minutes. I quote Ezekiel 5, I can't remember the exact verse, maybe 13, but I'm not sure, where it talks about what happens to Israel toward the end times, okay? And it makes manifestly clear that Russia, Turkey, and, you ready? Iran will attack Israel, and all of Israel's former allies will say, oh, well, to Russia, well, why are you doing that? You're stealing everything they have. In other words, all they'll do is talk economics. President Trump's favorite topic, which seems to govern. Look, I support Trump, but fact is fact. Seems to support everything he does. Gaza, his whole idea is economics. We're going to build that into a real paradise there on the water, which, by the way, it could be if they get rid of Hamas. But the fact is that Ezekiel says that in end times Israel will be abandoned by its former allies. We know that the European nations already made it clear they're abandoning them. And the United States, we're not saying it, but actions speak louder than words. And that's where we are. That's where we are. Go back and watch the podcast. Watch the podcast. The segment is right near the beginning where I talk about prophecy. I'll close with this. When I was a little kid, knee-high to grasshopper, my father would preach a series on Revelations. He was a Methodist minister, evangelical Methodist minister, something they don't have anymore. And he would say, folks, I got to tell you, in terms of the United States playing a decisive role in defending the state of Israel, it's just not there. Well, we know why, because the young lions, as the verse says, which Bible scholars say is watch the podcast and you'll see all. I'm not going to go any further into it. Watch the podcast. It's all in the first 10 to 15 minutes. You're seeing prophecy unfold, prophecy unfold. If you believe in the Bible, you're going to say, oh my gosh, it's really happening. If you don't, just look around you. All right, look around you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.